Okay, so for this topic, we're talking about defining ethics and how ethical behavior is reflected in public leadership. And so, um, for this topic, I was thinking of, well, Bill Clinton first came to mind because of the whole scandal. That was a huge thing, and then I thought about other people in high positions. Anthony Weiner came to mind with all his and Elliot Spitzer. So with Anthony Weiner, he had taken all these like naked photos and like I guess was sharing them with people. And then Elliot Spitzer was, I believe, the governor or senator of New York, and he was using funds, if I remember correctly, this was back in like 2007 or 8, using funds to um, bankroll his like prostitution fetish. I guess he was uh anyway, him and a bunch of other guys were caught spending the money on high end escorts. And to me, the reason I bring this up is because when you're in that position, a position of high power, your president, your senator, your governor, unfortunately, you have like a higher. It talks about the challenge of responsibility in the book, and they have a higher and moral responsibility, ethically and responsibly, to do what's right, because all eyes are on them. I mean, if we do something, we're not in the spotlight, and unfortunately for them, they chose to be in that type of high powered position. And if anything like that comes out, everybody's going to know about it. And also, on the same topic of ethics, they also the authors also go into detail about the challenge of consistency as one of the subtopics here. And for this topic, I'm going to use the example of where I work at the restaurant. And so it says here in the book, let's see, nonetheless, acting inconsistently raises significant ethical dilemmas. Those in a leader's in-group probably have no problem with the leader's favoritism. Those in the out-group probably resent the preferential treatment. And where I work, as I'm sure this happens quite a bit, whether it's overtly shown or done very subtly, I feel like at every job, there's always, most of the time, preferential treatment given to certain individuals. And where I'm at, I'm sure one of the owners wouldn't admit it, but we all kind of see him giving preferential treatment to one of the girls there. We come in, glasses aren't polished, a lot of things aren't done, and when we come in at night, myself and a group of other people, we work the afternoon to evening shift. Sometimes the owner will be like, "Oh, go ahead. You need to clean this. You need to clean the dust the picture frames," and he like gives us all these like lists of things to do. And sometimes we just like look at each other and think, "Okay, why wasn't this done? Why weren't some of these tasks done before? Why is it all put on us to come in?" And she would call in sick a lot of times in the past, last year, and it would always be last minute. So we all kind of knew she was either hungover or just didn't feel like working. And the owner, who was also the cook at the time, he would just call the other cook in and he would work for her. So we're just sitting there thinking, okay, wait, this does not happen for us. He does not come in and work for us if we call in like at the drop of a hat. So yeah, that was my example for the challenge of consistency. So it's just being consistent in treating all employees or followers the same.
Yeah, I agree with the consistency. Kind of touching on the political piece again, I think that while yes, while the politicians need to be ethical, I think that the bigger problem, one of the biggest problems, is they're so focused on tearing each other down and like what this person did in their personal life versus like how they're going to what policies they're going to put in place, what changes they're going to make. Like that should be the focus, and that's the only way that we're going to actually actuate change in our world, if we focus on those things. However, a lot of the times, if they are unethical, that could potentially mean that they're unethical in the way that they're running off the office. Mm-hmm. I had a personal experience of an unethical boss, mostly in the way that he spoke to all of our employees, similar to the example in the book of Jeff Bezos. He was also a perfectionist, and when you didn't do something correct, he belittled you. So like if there was a bunch of people from the office on the email or working on a project, instead of just replying to you and saying, hey, this is a mistake, like this is what we need to do in the future, he would reply to everyone and be like, why would you do something like that? Were you just not thinking? Do you not have a brain? Those sort of things. And honestly, that didn't help anyone. It didn't help us learn to not make mistakes. It didn't help rectify the mistake in the situation. It just really shut people down. And it became, everyone in the office knew about it. Everyone had moral sensitivity, and everyone practiced moral judgment, knowing that like that was wrong and that was not the way that he should be talking to people, but no one had any influence or tried to motivate him to change his moral character. At one point I was talking to the head of HR about an instance that had happened, and she told me just to not take it personally. So it was just normalizing this behavior when that wasn't ethically right to really speak to anyone that way. That's kind of what I wrote about.
To go with what you said, I think the two challenges that stood out to me that in the book that they really make or break a leader was the challenge of power and privilege, because they go kind of hand in hand. As the book said, abuse of privilege can have far-reaching consequences. And the example that I thought of for that was where I work right now. It's a very group effort where there's a bunch of people who are all doing the job, doing like the brute force of the job, and then the supervisors are supposed to help, but they fail to complete with the challenge of privilege, where the second they get promoted, they realize that they can do stuff in the back room that gets them away from doing the regular tasks that that everyone else normally has to do. And it kind of like shows where they used the power and the privilege and like forgot what it felt like to be on the floor doing the hard work while they were just chilling in the back room. And it just, for like example, for like Bezos, going back to what you were saying, he's using the power aspect in his leadership to abuse and like belittle his workers just because he has that power, and he's just taking advantage of it rather than using it to make everyone want to work for him. Because if you just continue to abuse the power and the privilege, everyone's just going to end up resenting you rather than wanting to help you. And for examples, when you were talking about the presidential stuff, it's people using the power of abuse and like finding information about you just to push you down and get you out of the race rather than helping the person that they think is the most beneficial to the lives of everyone else. They just want to have that power and privilege to themselves by getting everyone else out of the way by playing dirty. So I don't know. I just feel like those two challenges are the ones that make or break a leader, really.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. So what I saw from reading this when I was looking at ethics, so especially engaging in two-way communication and building symmetrical relationships that encourage ethical behavior. I see that most in when I've been working, especially at jobs. So I've been doing a lot of sales, and a lot of the times back in the day, people would sell something and kind of stay away from that business, or they got their check, they got their commission, and so they moved on. And I think in today's time, especially 2019, that businesses work together and it becomes a partnership. And when it's not a partnership and you kind of leave them cold and dry and never reach out to them again, I kind of believe that's kind of unethical business. And I think it's just crucial that you become a partnership so that whenever there's any questions or they need any help, that you can be there. And typically that leads to future business. It leads to referrals. It leads to a lot of other good stuff that can help you. And it just takes businesses being ethical.
Yeah. I think tying everything together, I think the one leadership values that for the ethical background that I saw in the book that really made sense was the power of altruism, where it makes concerns for the ultimate ethical standard. Like the book says, their behavior argue that they ought to help others regardless of whether we get any benefit from doing so. And I feel like if a leader is there to lead for everyone else, there's not really any consequences they can face, because everything they're doing it for the good of everyone else rather than just for themselves.
Yeah.